I am so excited for this next session. So far today, we have heard about how to grow, market, scale, brand, finance your business, and we still have 2 sessions left. So, ladies of this next Female Founders Collective session, please turn your cameras on and join me up on virtual stage as I introduce your session. Rebecca Minkoff's Female Founder Collective panel will be speaking to ditching the Jill of all trades mentality. Small business owners and founders rely on the I got it and I can do it all mentality. So today you can expect to hear about community, delegation, outsourcing, and partnerships. As a reminder, please throw questions as they pop into your head into the Q&A chat feature, and then myself and the Yelp team are going to handle dispersing them out to our moderator. But without further ado, I will turn it over to co-founder and CEO of Female Founder Collective, Allie Wyatt.
Thank you so much, Allie. It's wonderful to be here to another Allie. And thank you all for taking the time. We know it's crazy, especially as business owners. I'm going to just do a little intro on what Female Founder Collective is. We're so honored to be partnering with Yelp on this first ever summit for women. So kudos to them. But I am, as she said, the co-founder and CEO, and we are a platform for female founders to connect, to find education, and to find vetted resources. We right now have a free membership, but we actually are introducing a souped up, super served version of a paid membership next month. So stay tuned for that. And also to note, next week, we have an event of our own called Female Founders Day, which is a whole day of, actually 2 days of education and workshops. But we're not here to talk about that. We've assembled some incredible women from the Female Founder Collective Network who we truly admire and who we think are the absolute experts when it comes to the notion of delegating, the idea of connecting. So we're going to talk a lot about those two things and this whole idea that as women, we tend to take on a Jill of all trades mentality. And what do we mean by that? We feel like women tend to try to be everything to everyone. And that is not a recipe for success in our minds. So we're going to give you some takeaways and some recommendations from these incredible women on the way they've navigated their careers and climbed the ladders and found success of their own. So I'm going to kick it off and I'm going to toss it over to Mandela. Because you've actually talked about some behavior gaps in the past. Can you tell us a little bit about the groups that you have seen and how they communicate, network, and ask for money? And actually, before you do that, I'm going to have you intro yourself. And as I sort of toss the mic over to you, if you could give a little bit of background on the incredible things that you've done, because Mandela is actually the founder and CEO of Founder Gym.
Thank you so much, Allie. I appreciate it. I'm super excited to be here. Can you hear me okay? I just want to make sure.
We can hear you all as well. We have some of the other lovely panelists in as well. We'd love to just encourage you guys to turn your cameras on and join so we can get a full view of you all as lovely panelists.
Awesome. Let's show our faces, ladies. Okay, so while that's happening, I'll give a short introduction of myself. So my name is Mandela Schumacher Hodge Dixon, all of that. I am currently the founder and CEO of a company called Founder Gym. We are the #1 online training program servicing underrepresented founders who want to raise capital to scale their tech startups. We've served over 500 founders across 24 countries, 6 continents, who've gone on to raise now close to $90 million in the last 3 years. And so basically we help people secure the bag, get the financing they need to then hire the team and delegate the role so that they can really build a winning business. My background's actually as a teacher and an athlete. So Founder Gym is a culmination of my experiences using sports psychology as well as pedagogy and educational best practices combined with entrepreneurship to really help move the needle for groups like women, Black founders, Latinx founders, LGBTQIA founders to really help close the funding gap that I'm sure a lot of this audience is very familiar with. So Allie, I think your question was around networking. Is that right? And
it was around networking, but also you in the past in the press have sort of talked about these gaps in behavior amongst founders of different types, right? Whether it's a white man versus a
Oh,
Black
yes.
woman founder. And I'd be really interested to sort of hear what some of those behavioral gaps are, particularly as it relates to connecting, as it relates to delegating, and how you sort of steered them through that.
For sure, for sure. So I think even an article you're referencing is an article that published in Entrepreneur Magazine actually last month. And that article was all about the differences that I've noticed over my 10-year career in Silicon Valley, watching overrepresented founders like white and Asian men navigate building a business, delegating, building a team versus other underrepresented founders like women, Black founders, et cetera. And so some of the key differences are the experiences I had as one of the first Black women founders to raise venture capital back in 2012. And that one thing was imposter syndrome. When you are a first or an only to do something, there is an additional weight, an additional pressure to kind of prove yourself and be on all the time and not really show any cracks in your armor. And so that's actually counter to what's needed to build a successful business and really tap into the powerful networks that investors have and leverage them for all that they're worth. And so one of the lessons I learned after building, scaling, and then failing my first VC-backed startup was just how much my own imposter syndrome hindered me from ever asking for help, from ever really showing levels of vulnerability to open myself up to advice that would have been really helpful for me if I would have just said, I don't really know what the heck I'm doing. Can you help me? Can we brainstorm? Can we do some financial projections together? Versus me always coming in and saying, things are great, everything's under control. So that's one of the biggest barriers. And I would say another barrier that I'll touch upon really quickly is the access to a network who has experience building tech businesses. So if you are a first in your family, in your community, in your neighborhood to build this business, you may not know other people who've done it. So your pool to recruit from isn't necessarily as strong as other people's pools to recruit from. And so really having to teach people, how do you value differences as strengths? And maybe someone doesn't have the pedigree of an Ivy League and working at a big tech company, but they have these other skill sets that are really valuable to being a team member that can contribute a lot. So again, there's a long laundry list of differences, but those are two of the main ones.
And then is there anything that you would say to those founders as a first step? And if you rewind back to, and as you said, you were a teacher and then you started your own business. You started a couple now, I think.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to hear when you were in that mindset of first starting your business, you were an underrepresented founder.
Very much so.
What was that mentality and how did you sort of know to start delegating and outsourcing some of the work that you had on your plate?
Yeah, you're one person. You are one person. So your business can only scale to the ability that you can scale yourself. And when you are first starting a business, everyone's the inventor of their product or their service. And really what it takes to scale a business is transitioning yourself from an inventor to a CEO, to a leader of leaders. And so one of the key, I think, catalysts for me was just failing. To be honest, like not asking for enough help, not delegating, not systematizing and creating processes within my business to scale myself. And just that failure and kind of doing a postmortem, I learned a lot. And so when I chose to do Founder Gym, throw my hat back in the ring at full-time entrepreneurship, I made a choice up front that I'm going to do this very differently than I did the first time because it was so painful. And when you give so much of yourself to something, you make so many sacrifices. Again, it's not necessarily going to be easier the second time around, but I definitely chose to not just work hard, but work smarter. And I will say one book that I read that was instrumental for me in shifting my mindset around how I build businesses is Essentialism. It's by Greg McKeown. And that book is not just about for entrepreneurs, it's really for anybody, but it's a mindset shift in how you value your time. Like we all have a finite amount of time on this earth. There's an expiration date. You don't know when it's coming, but it's coming. And I think that just sitting with yourself and really asking yourself what matters most to you. And if you're going to put in the energy here, like what's the ROI, the return on investment you want? And so I think that book, Essentialism, really helped me understand that, yes, I'm starting another business, but I'm also a wife. life. I wanted to be a new mom at the time, and I ended up having a baby during my business. But I had other goals, and I think that being making the decision to delegate is also making the decision to create time and space for other parts of your life outside of your business.
Amazing. Thank you.
Mhm.
Nekpen, I want to go to you because you actually have different experience that's worth noting, and that you have, before you became a business mentor, you actually were the co-founder of Women at Work or Women Work.
Yeah.
In your position as co-founder, can you talk a little bit about how you knew when to start delegating? You have a wonderful team. And if you ever were up against that sort of idea of imposter syndrome as you start to become a leader, and as Mandela was talking about, instead of just a founder, I'd be interested to hear about your experience in those early days.
Thank you so much, Allie. And it's a pleasure to share this virtual stage with these amazing women. I've been following their careers for most of my career. So super excited for this conversation. You're right. I started Women Work about 7 years ago as a nonprofit for women to really build community. The story of Women Work is that we focus on women of color, identifying women of color strengths and not so much the gaps. And the statistics that are typical. We want to build solutions for women of color. And in starting the organization, I myself transitioned from being someone who's super passionate about a topic or a customer or brand to realizing you have to be able to build vision and a team to get more done. My father used to teach me that you never can really make a lot of money if you do it yourself. There's just not enough time. There's not enough opportunity to create impact alone. So when you go with the village, just calling on my Nigerian heritage here, when you go with the village, you go with community and your network, you're able to do so much more. And as Mandela highlighted, more experts on your team supporting you, which is why I love Yelp for Business, because they've already got a lot of expertise behind the platform. They know what businesses need to say, do, and position themselves strategically in order to stand out. They're creating that marketplace for you instead of you individually looking into the horizon, trying to get your own followers, trying to get your own message out there, trying to get your own reviewers. These are all key elements that they already have done for you. So that's not even a plug. That is the reality of the work that I've seen leadership really do for people. As an immigrant, I started off thinking I just keep my head down, work really hard, be an individual contributor that's smart and intelligent, but I didn't look left and I didn't look right and I didn't look up, and I started to get burnout. I started to lose motivation. I didn't get the exposure I needed for the talent I was bringing to the table. And that's what Women Work is. It's that network for you to not only be a great as an individual, but also to lean into other women who have different expertise and to really start to look up in terms of seeing women of color who are leaders, who want to support you in your growth and your journey and are willing to put themselves out there to recommend you. Just like a great referral for any business, you have to have a referral for your personal brand. And so that's where we really come in to support more women to get to that next level.
And I'm going to go to Susan because Susan just wrote a book called The Lost Art of Connecting, which during this remote world time, there's nothing that we need more is to sort of find a way to connect again, whether in a virtual setting or hopefully soon not. But would love to hear sort of your thoughts on what are some of the strategies or tactics you give to, whether you're a founder or not, women in order to build these networks or to find the types of communities that Nekpen's building, that Mandela's building, in order to help them advance their business forward?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to be here, and what an honor. And I just have to say, as the oldest woman in the room, listening to both Mandela and Nekpen, it gives me so much hope for the future because I'm 56, okay? And I don't even want to begin to guess your youthful years, but to see just how much you've accomplished, but more importantly, the wisdom that you carry and that you're sharing is remarkable. And you are doing so much to help future generations. And when I was your age, I didn't have that. I came of age in the 90s where when a woman made it through the glass ceiling, guess what happened? she shut it behind her. Okay. So anyhow, I wanted to honor both of the powerful words of wisdom you shared. And now, of course, I forgot Allie's question, but I remember words of advice for building your community. And I want to just decipher. I fervently believe there is a difference between networking and building meaningful relationships. And honestly, I think Nekpen and Mandela touched upon that. We all need to network. We all need to do the glad handing. And obviously, this past year, that's been very difficult. But this past year, for some of us, we've actually made deep, meaningful relationships, and we actually reconnected with people that perhaps we hadn't been in touch with for a long time. So maybe that is one of the few silver linings. But I have carried through my professional career something that honestly has helped me open so many doors, both professionally, personally, as well as in my public service and volunteering and philanthropy work that I do. And that is leading with, how can I be of help? How can I be of service? And I say that in a room full of women and an audience full of women where I know we have the potential to potentially put others before us. And I am not suggesting that. I am suggesting that we actually help ourselves when we help others. So in my book, obviously, there's a lot of very, very specifics, which I won't bore everyone with, but I will say it is arming yourself with very specific questions when you walk into whatever room it is, whether it's a virtual room, a rubber chicken dinner, which we are on the cusp to going back to, as well as a conference room, a convention hall, ever. But ask meaningful questions that are going to elicit the meaningful responses that arm you or provide you with the details so that then you can become a helper, a doer, a connector, an introducer. It isn't all about you taking it on to be the master of all support, but rather as you build your communities, you then have a larger bank of connections from which to actually refer people to. So it's not, the onus isn't all on you. So I think, very specifically, learn to ask the right questions so that you get the information needed to then be a doer. And in asking those questions, learn how to listen. Okay. This year has been extraordinarily challenging for our ability to pay attention, right? We're sitting here, we have our email, we have our fax. Well, we don't have our fax. That's a misstatement. But we have Twitter and DMs and Instagram and all these things plaguing us. And it is very easy to not pay attention to the person talking. So to me, the onus is on us to learn how to better listen, because magic happens when you actually listen and pay attention and then have the tools from which to follow up.
I love that so much. And I've heard from a lot of, different people, whether it's you're sitting across the table from clients or investors, that's such an important thing that you can do, is actually make sure that they're the one that's doing the majority of the talking, because then you're going to walk away with so many other ways to be able to really service them, as you talked about as well. But that's really beautiful, this idea of service, in the idea of connecting with other people. I want to go very specifically into delegation, because at the top, I know we talked a little bit about this, Mandela, already on sort of those early days of starting a business and trying to figure out, okay, when should I start to bring other people in? What tasks should I be handing off versus doing myself? How do you sort of know where to demarcate that? And Nekpen, I want to start with you. You have a co-founder that works alongside you. How did you go about choosing a business partner, for one? And then can you touch on how having a co-founder has propelled your business forward, and whether or not you would recommend that to people, and just sort of the process of finding one? Because I think that's something that a lot of people scratch their heads on.
Yeah. Most businesses in America are solo entrepreneurship models. As Susan can attest.
I haven't,
but
it was me.
Right. No, that's wonderful. And I just really admire people who can do that. For me, I didn't start Women Work until after a year sitting on the idea. And my co-founder came along and said, "What are you waiting for? Like, we need to do this. I want to do this with you." And the last year I've transitioned to CEO because she stepped away to sort of lead our board. And I think that one of the biggest things about having a co-founder that's been amazing is this idea of having a thought leader and a thought partner. I think a lot of women have great ideas. There's no shortage of ideas in this world. I think a lot of people put their ideas on pause. They put it on delay. They prioritize other things for a very long time, as I used to do, because they don't have the company or the network that will push them to create it and try to fail. I know for me personally, I'm a perfectionist. So the idea of failing gets me to not start. And I've had to talk myself out of that. My co-founder is the exact opposite. She wants to fail fast. She wants us to try instead of not doing. And that's a concept I picked up from her that's really accelerated my career, I'll be honest with you, because now I get overthinking myself. I get over doubting. And I start to realize that to create something is more beautiful than to try to do nothing perfectly. My co-founder has also been really helpful because she's the person on our team that holds us to a rigorous standard. I'm a people person. If my team decides tomorrow they want to build a mountain, I say, let's do that. Let's build a mountain. That sounds great. I don't want to shut you down. My co-founder is a realist. She'll tell us to be a little bit more strategic, a little bit more measured in our work. And that's really saved us resources, honestly, as a nonprofit. We're not, a startup that can just spend unlimitedly and come back to our investors and ask for more. That's just not the model in the world, women of color have the privilege of operating in. And so a lot of times she helps us remember that discipline that, again, because I'm such a visionary, I love these things, literally taking it to the end. She balances me. I also want to talk about this idea of finding your co-founder, right? Some of us are waiting for someone to push us over the edge, and that's totally fine. In the meantime, I would recommend that you find communities that are doing the work that you're passionate about. Because of a digital transformation due to COVID, there's so many more communities out there that you can lean into to get ideas, to get feedback, mentorship. A couple that I really love, besides women work, obviously, I love the Elevate Network. And they have a partner for financial work called Elvest, which I'm so proud of Sally and Elvest. They just reached $1 billion asset under management, which is amazing. These are all communities that have a lot of professional women that want to be part of your cheerleading squad and want to support the work you're doing. Obviously, the Female Founders Collective, I cannot underscore enough how amazing the network that Rebecca and Allie are leading has been in supporting our business throughout the last year as we pivot to be successful. Please lean into these networks.
Oh, yeah.
Because those women are there to support you. I've also done a lot of work with Vital Voices. It's an organization that I'm a fellow for this year. And I know, Susan, you're part of that community too. The Vital Voices community is so amazing in accelerating women in public service and elected roles. So if you have aspirations in that way, you're just waiting, again, get in there. You'll see more experienced women who have expertise who want you to win. And that'll be the difference, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna, I know Susan has a great answer to this question, so I'm gonna direct this to you. I think this is the one that you were referencing. So I'm gonna direct this to you as well. But Mandela, I also want to hear from your point of view of how you start to sort of assemble around you as a founder that group of support, whether it does need to be a co-founder or not, but then also for all of the audience members, just want to let you know, in about 5 minutes or so, we're going to start taking your questions. So feel free to put those into the Q&A right now, and we'll get to them.
Well, first of all, power to all of our communities and networks, and for helping us break our bubbles and get out of, the people that look and feel and sound just like, maybe not feel, but sound just like us. And, yes, the Female Founders Collective, Luminary, the List, the We Suite, the Riveter. I mean, these communities have been such sustenance, especially during this past year, but overall. But interestingly enough, I founded my company at age 48. And it was not anything but a placeholder until I found the next thing. And then it kept growing. And 98% of our business in the last 8 years has been inbound. So, you ask why it's important to build meaningful relationships, that there's the proof in the pudding there. But to specifically address the question that Allie raised as to when do you start hiring, when, if you find a co-founder, all the reasons. And I got tremendous advice that like literally 6 months in, that I think really changed the trajectory of my company. Now, this may apply to consulting more than a software or a product development company. So I want to caveat that. But as women overall, we tend to be hoarders. I have bag lady syndrome even today, that all of a sudden everything's going to, go to stew and I'm going to be left with nothing, right? I mean, that is a typical, a very common thing that many of us feel. So in business, when their times are flush, we tend to hoard, right? This is the time to like stack it away because there's going to be a rainy day soon, right? But what this remarkable consultant said to me is no. When things are flush is when you want to find all the people and surround yourself like a cashmere blanket with, who are going to be doing the things that, one, you suck at doing, or two, the things you don't like to do. And then guess what? That's going to free you to be absolutely super, whatever the Mary Poppins statement is, supercalifragilistic, but at what you're good at. And by doing that, you will then be successful. So I say now, like right then and there, it is the time to find those people because it'll allow you to soar.
Love that. Mandela, would love to hear your thoughts on this topic.
Sure. I think it's supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And the only reason I know
you did it. It's amazing. I was like, I know what it is, but it's not going to come out in my mouth right. It's just going to come
Beautifully said.
something else. Gorgeous.
And the funny thing is, I was watching Mary Poppins this weekend, believe it or not. I only got through the first 20 minutes of it. But anyway, that's why I know that line. It's really random that you brought that up. So my thoughts about team building. So I am a huge proponent of building a team. And I think what really stops people from building a team is, number one, they are so busy in survival mode that they really don't know how to get off the treadmill of just servicing the clients they have right now, the membership they have right now, to like stop and think about who they need, how they're going to get them, and how they're going to make the best use out of their position on their team. So I think one thing is they're just busy, they're overextended. I think another reason that I see all the time is trust. They don't trust other people with their dreams. And this is one of the biggest things I see come up time and time again, is a lack of trust and letting go and letting other people in. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are type A personalities. They have a long history of winning, and winners keep on winning. And I think their bar and their standard is very high, and they've sacrificed a lot to get their business to the point they have gotten it to. And so to let other people in and to share that responsibility, to trust them, not to drop the ball, not to mess up the brand, is another point of friction. And I think a third point of friction is capital, money. I think a lot of people think they need to wait to hire people or expand their team when they actually have the capital to pay them to replace their salary at someplace else. And I'll address the last thing because I think this is one of the biggest, is that every single person on Team Founder Gym started part-time. They were working either another full-time job or they were working another part-time job. And I slowly folded them in. I slowly started having them drink the Kool-Aid. And over time, to also make sure it was the right fit. Like, I also believe in trial periods. And that, especially if you want to find the right chemistry and the right team, like obviously I told you I'm an athlete. Founder Gym is based off of a lot of sports principles. And I think about creating your own tryout period, right? Like a lot of what I talk about too is like, if you're the Michael Jordan, who's your Scottie Pippen? If you're the Kobe Bryant, who's your Shaquille O'Neal? And really sometimes you need a trial period, a tryout, to really see how it is to work together. Because oftentimes the best you may see of people is on interview day. And you really need the time and the experience to be in the weeds in a really fast-paced, under-resourced, high-intensity experience of building a business from the ground up to really see where people's pressure points are and what kind of pressure that they can handle. Because startup land is not for everybody. Some people get very uncomfortable being in ambiguity and they like structure. They want to be in a role that's already predefined. It's pretty safe. It's stable. And so I think when you're thinking about building a team for the first time, you really need to assess people's appetite for ambiguity. And I do believe in having a trial period of about 3 months working together. And it's not just for them. It's for you as well, just to see if it vibes and it works well. And I feel like that's worked really well. Every single person on my team who joined in year one is still here. Right. And so just taking the time to get that chemistry right can really pay dividends in the long term.
I love your point on that, Mandela, and to sort of double click on that, not to use that sort of hated phrase, but it's something that we've actually always done as well. And the interpersonal relationships in a company are that's the number one thing that puts companies under. It's not cash flow. It's not any of the other pieces. That if you have people within the company that are at the top and that are sitting there and they don't get along well, or as you were saying, from a workflow perspective, just aren't jiving, or there's not, as you said, that appetite for ambiguity. And then you've hired somebody, the notion of hiring somebody and then the whole act of then firing them and then going out and starting that search over again, it's a really painful process. And so if you can have it be a trial, I always call it dating before you get married, then both sides can see if this is a good fit. So I think that's really beautiful advice. I'm going to take some of the attendee questions. One is actually directed again at Mandela, and that how was it starting a business working as a teacher? I'm just starting a small business and I work full time and I'm a mom, 3 big jobs. I'm struggling to find balance.
Ooh, it's hard. It's hard. So I think just accept that it's going to be a juggling act at first. And there's a season. There's seasonality to businesses. And the season that you're in right now is that you're managing several priorities: motherhood, teacherhood, beginning your entrepreneurial career. One piece of advice I have is to create your own jump jar, which I call the founder's piggy bank. And I really do believe that you need to be your first investor before you can rely on getting substantial revenue in to replace your income right now, or to get investment if that's a path you're going down. And so really just decide what % of your biweekly paycheck you want to automatically just move over to your piggy bank, because your piggy bank is your bet on your dreams, on yourself. And if you don't have the capital and the runway to eventually really invest and put some muscle behind your dreams, you will always kind of be in that limbo period, right? Of kind of like like being a hobbyist, right? And in order to be a business owner, it's really about like a transaction of capital at some point. Even if you're a nonprofit, a transaction of capital between you and your funder. And so I think just, again, accept that this is the season you're in and that really saving some money right now so you can be your first investor in your dreams. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe 6 months from now, a year from now, but that's okay. That's what I did. I really built up my own piggy bank. The other thing I will say is, I really do think that the ethos of this conversation is about community and networking. And I really believe in the power of your network. And I really do believe that your network can truly determine your net worth. And so I would start building your community right now. Who, like really taking an inventory and an audit of who you are, what you're good at, what you're not, identify your gaps, and try to go look at your LinkedIn. Try to look at this community here right now, right? See who is out there who can fill in some of the gaps that you have. So at least you can start having your educational process, like create your own MBA program, right? Even if your business isn't ready to go full time, you can start training yourself and preparing yourself with, like, how do I, monitor P&L, profit and loss? How do I go about hiring a 1099 contractor? You can start the education process now. So when you are ready to go full time, you're much more informed.
Allie, I just wanted to add, I love that advice that Mandela is giving, because it is such a reality that with those many hats, you have to be more disciplined about what you choose to do and focus on versus what you delegate. So I want to just share, Fiverr and Upwork were so helpful when we were starting my nonprofit, because I was doing that with a full-time job at a financial services institution. And if I didn't have other people on a contract basis helping move our branding along, our content development, our writing, our copyright, all these things that I'm not an expert at, but we needed to get off the ground, I would never have gotten Women Work where it is today. That early runway of working a full-time job and trying to start a company was just really hard. And I would lean into getting some sort of contract, short-term support where you can't do things. I also want to shout out Calendly, which is started by my friend Tope. This idea of managing your time and automating your schedule is going to really free up your capacity. As a mom, I don't know about you, but I feel like it's important to have parts of my day where one is for family, the other is for my business, the third is for my nonprofit. And so my calendar scheduling reflects just that and helps me stay disciplined. So I'm staying true to the commitments I've already made with the people and the employers in my life. But I also have created dedicated time on my calendar where I'm working to grow my business. And I have a lot of focus to do that work with discipline. It's not enough to just say, I want to do it and I hope to get it done. Building out that structured time in your day, I think, is going to help you really transition and grow your business over time.
So smart. I need to implement time blocks like that. Susan, we have 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna direct this next question to you because I think it's very relevant as a serial connector. And that, is it important to have your brand messaging down before you make business connections so that those connections can be more strategic? Or is it okay to try to find connections while you're still sort of in that discovery mode?
Well, there's no exact yes or no to that. I am a huge believer, obviously, in finding your secret sauce, finding your chief differentiating factor, and obviously throughout your professional lives, that it will ebb and flow. Okay, so it is a good exercise to do every once in a while. And I will just tell you, I came up with Susan McPherson as a serial connector at an offsite. I did a retreat with 7 of my best girlfriends, and over the weekend, this was we went up to the Catskills for those of you based in the Northeast. And the goal was we were not going to leave without having our elevator speech down. And possibly it would have been nice. I could still be in that beautiful house if I hadn't have figured it out. But I came up with something that everyone had kept telling me, but I was afraid to admit. And honestly, at the end of the weekend, when I said, I am a serial connector, blah, 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 I wanted to pee in my pants because it sounded so ridiculous. But it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And when you are confident in what you are good at, and you can actually state it, it will make your connection building that much better. But I also want to be mindful that to build deep, meaningful relationships, it is not always, the onus is not on you. It is being inclusive about the other person and listening to that person. And it may mean adapting your secret sauce, depending on what you learn about the other person. But listening to both my just tremendous colleagues on this panel, clearly what they both have just demonstrated in their success is knowing what they're good at and knowing when to ask others for help or look elsewhere to fill those needs. But guess what? They had done the research to already know where to look. Okay. So I would say, as important as it is for you to come up with what your secret sauce, your chief differentiating factor is, it is also just as important to surround yourself with people who can fill those other needs that and other skills that perhaps at this point in time, and I mean at this point, because you could gain them, but at this point in time are not your strong suit.
We have 2 minutes left. So in that 2 minutes, I want to zero in on something that has been a key takeaway for me from all of you. And that's that it's really important to find what your superpower is so that you can then figure out what are the things that you are outsourcing. So what advice would you give, and anybody can go first, on helping somebody to actually find what is their superpower? What is the thing that they should be focusing their time on to achieve the best results on behalf of their business? Who wants to take it first?
You want to go, Nekpen?
Sure. So I have 2 things that I always have to ask myself on an annual basis. I do vision boarding and I throw a big vision board party in my network every year. And the 2 things that I'm constantly asking people to reflect on to continue to define and evolve their superpowers are: 1, what gives you energy, right? What is that thing that you find yourself doing instead of the things you know you have to do, but you're like, I really love doing this more. You do it for free. Not that we're asking you to do it for free, but you would. You really enjoy it. It gives you energy. It makes you feel like you're in flow, right? For folks who know what flow is, it's that thing where you don't have to exert too much energy, but there's some level of effort, obviously, to do it well. Do that thing more and find a way to monetize it. The second thing I always ask people, again, first, what gives you energy? The second is, what do you find people coming to you for over and over again? That's the thing that your network knows you're good at, your girlfriends know you're good at, even the family members in your network, they know you're good at it. So you're always getting a call about that thing. Is it event planning? For me, it's salary negotiation. If someone's transitioning jobs and they need career advice, they know I've got a formula for how to get that next job at a decent salary for what they're worth. There's something that you are uniquely good at that folks keep coming to you for, and you are dismissing that as something that could be a business. Those are the two sort of what gives you energy and what gives the world value around you that I would say is a good way to identify what your superpower is.
It also might give you the fodder to write a book.
Right? Chapters on end on a topic you love, like Susan.
Time for Mandela and Susan to answer this question.
Yeah, so I was going to say very much the same thing about the energy, what gives you energy. But one of the ways I've really solidified my superpowers, aside from being with myself and reflecting, is two things. I do a receipt box. So basically, a receipt box is a historical record of the achievements that you've had over your lifetime that most other people cannot do or would be very hard for them to do. So if you actually just look back over time from your childhood to middle school to high school to college, you will be able to find like a common thread time and time again. So even now when people compliment me on leadership, I'm like, I was the captain of my middle school soccer team. I was the captain of my high school team. I was the captain of my college team. So leadership is something that I've been doing. And I think that me looking back and seeing that helps me stand in that a little bit more confidently. So that's one thing. The second thing is asking other people. And I think this goes to Nekpen's point of talk to other people who are around you, know your family, your friends, old coworkers, and ask them how they see you. One of the most transformative activities we do at our retreat at Founder Gym is a superpower activity. So we have fans of Star Trek and Avengers, and everybody has to come up with their own avatar, their superhero name, a costume, their kryptonite, all of these different things. And it just really helps people see, like have a, what's it called? Alter ego that they really get enamored to. We can see how we become the Avengers if we work together.
Can we have Susan close us out?
Yeah, I will just add, find what you love and do what you love.
Love it.
I love that. That's such a perfect way to end. Ladies, thank you so much. I love all the superpower chats. I was just chatting some of my colleagues and I'm like, what's my superpower? I have to figure out what that is.
It's a deep differentiating factor.
Yes, I love it. I'm going to think about it, add it to my vision board. But I also loved how you ladies were talking about the importance of actively building meaningful relationships in an effort to really build community instead of just surface level, network, shake virtual hands. So it was a very powerful session. Allie, thank you so much for leading it. I'm going to invite you ladies to take your cameras off, step off virtual stage, but thank you so much for your time today.